Hello and welcome to episode 78 of our Conversations to Connect. Let's Get Real Talk, powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm Cyndi ONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. Our conversation to connect this week is with the inspiring Nicole Orozco, joining us from Mill Creek, Washington. Welcome, Nicole.
Hey, hi Cindy, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be able to roll up our sleeves and be able to discuss the beautiful topic that you shared with our Exceptional Connections community last Tuesday. And so, all about leading with integrity, how authenticity shapes your leadership identity. So, before we jump in to this intriguing conversation, I want to take a moment and introduce Nicole to our listeners who may not have attended our event last week or know her and share her amazing passion for making a difference in our community and the world. So, Nicole Orozco is the owner of Mill Creek View newspaper and co-founder of the Flame newspaper, which distributed over 1 million copies across the United States. She also launched the Flame podcast and is the author of 5 books. Wow, including the transformative The Frequency Code. Nicole is the founder of 2 purpose-driven platforms, Elixir, is that right? ElixirPublishingHouse.com and Elixir.onlylifeglobal.com, dedicated to conscious publishing, healing, and personal transformation. A Chapman University graduate with a degree in psychology, Nicole is a keynote speaker, teacher, certified life coach, and frequency healing coach. Wow, you wear a lot of hats, Nicole.
Did one more.
And you'll tell us about one more too, right? Originally from Torrance in the Coachella Valley in California, a, she has called a suburb of Seattle, Washington, home for over 15 years. She has been happily married for 19 years and is the proud mother of 4 children and grandmother of 5. Oh, beautiful. So, welcome, Nicole. And before we jump into our conversation, share a little bit more about your journey so we can fill in the gaps for our listeners.
Well, my journey started out rough, you know. I grew up, my mom loved me dearly. Grew up with a grandma and grandpa, single mom. They owned a beer bar, a lot of the 70s kind of dysfunction. I think a lot of the families just kind of rolled with things, you know. And went to high school, got into the Hollywood crowd because I grew up in LA. It was fun, but I got into trouble. Got had a baby at 17, which saved my life, I think, and got married and had kids, and but by 20 I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And so early on I was highly gifted, in the gifted classes and the college courses in high school, things like that. And and so I'm like, I'll do real estate, and got a real estate license at 20 and raised a bunch of kids and did sales and real estate and things like that. And about 29, I was more on a self-healing journey, more of the looking within, the Jungian type of shadow work, the going to church, giving your life to God, but also doing the psychology that fascinated me, and really taking the steps to do a lot of work within. So that led me to get a psychology degree and go to college and show my kids I could work full time and get a degree. So did my drug and alcohol certification, did then changed over to Chapman University, did a psychology degree, graduated 3.85, whatever that term is, but anyway, graduated with honors. And and then became a teacher, program director for the mentally ill, and eventually back into sales, design consultant, and back in because you have to make money when you're a single mom of 4 kids. During that time, I wrote the book, The Single Mother's Journey to Wholeness, Hope and Help for Single Moms, did keynote speaking for that, helped a lot of moms move into their a lot of people with dysfunction is what I found. A lot of really smart people, but traumatized. And
Mhm.
how to move from point A to point B to point C and raise kids at the same time and be a good person. And so I did keynote speaking, helped a lot of people get back into college, helped them, define their careers, their North Star, things like that. And just kept plugging away, started having grandbabies. And I also had a spinal fusion with a Harrington rod, so also physical disabilities, right? And so back in before COVID, I had a granddaughter. I was working for Riches as a design consultant, but I also I learned to build websites. Like during this whole span, I think I'm highly gifted autistic or something, because I get fixated very easy. And I was in the gifted stuff, and I don't mean that egotistically. I mean, my mind gets fixated and I want to learn. And so I decided I would learn how to build websites and try businesses. I was working for other people, and it was hard physically, because if I needed to take a nap or lay down, or my neck was going, or my back, or having just symptoms, crazy symptoms, I felt like I couldn't do what I needed to do. And also there was no freedom to see the grandbabies, right? So if I wanted to fly or take a vacation, you have to ask people for permission. And I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So when COVID started happening, we started the Flame, and that was against tyranny. I saw tyrannical forces in our government, and I ran into my friend Anna at church. And, what are you doing? Oh, I think I'll write books on this. And the newspaper literally fell into our lap. I had a friend in Canada that was getting out millions of newspapers, and it was called Druthers. And he asked if I wanted to run America. And so me and Anna started out with Druthers, being the coordinators for America. And so we got probably 600,000 papers. I don't even know, a lot of papers out, went to Missouri, started meeting some high level people that were fighting tyranny too, a lot of big names. And so we started our own paper, because they kind of were like, America's too hard. And it was a different model than Canada at the time. So we started the Flame, and started newspaper, and that was our boot camp. And I learned a lot. And so we flew over around America and got millions, over a million papers out. And we were at all the events, and just really trying to keep government overreach from going forward. In the meantime, I got offered the Mill Creek View. So I took the opportunity. I say yes. My husband, I was singing in the mall in Everett. They asked if I wanted to sing. I don't sing. Like um, I think I sang, give me the beat, boy, to free my soul. I want to get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. So anyway, I get up in the middle of Everett Mall, and my husband goes, "Why? How do you do that?" Because he sings really good, and he won't do that. And I said, "I say yes, because you never know what God's going to offer, right?" And the minute after I said that, I got offered the Mill Creek View newspaper. And I was getting a little, I said yes. And we got the contract signed and took over the paper. And at the time, I was having some problems politically with my views and with alignment of what I was doing with the Flame. And it wasn't congruent anymore in my soul. So I said, Anna, why don't you take the Flame, because you know what you're doing with it, and I know what I'm doing with the Mill Creek View, and I'll take over that. And so we did. And it was too hard to do both. And the Mill Creek View was more local. And as a good friend of mine says, that was in a movement that, well, not good friend, but acquaintance that people know, he always says local action makes national impact. And so took over the Mill Creek View, and then also decided I would write. I love to write books, and wrote 4 more books and helped other people write books. And then just kept plugging along and found and started having more physical ailments, and started the Ollie Life Frequency Machine, wrote the frequency code, and now starting Lighthouse Alliance for especially domestic violence, but it could be for any legal battle somebody's going through, and whole therapy and vocational training and all of that. So that's my journey in a nutshell.
Wow. You are amazing and you are so gifted. And I love your heart for making a difference. As I said in the beginning, not only in our community, but also just you have such a vision for being able to impact lives. So thank you for that update. And I've learned some things and I've gotten to know you, over the last number of year or so. And but I learned some things from your sharing as well. So I love that. Thank you. Well, let's jump in. So you spoke to our Exceptional Connections community last Tuesday, again about leading with integrity, how authenticity shapes your identity, leadership identity. And so I thought it'd be fun to just kind of like have a conversation about really the things that you went over. And I know you only had 20 minutes, so we have a little more time today to explore these topics. But in your recent talk, I loved your perspective when you said that everyone is born a leader. Will you expound a little bit more on that beautiful insight?
Yeah, well, we're all born with leadership, and we're all born more with than that. We're born with treasure within us. And so our treasure is our time, our talents, and our time, our gifts, the talents that God get personally endows us with, right? And so we're all different. We all have different gifts to share with the world, whether you're introvert, extrovert, whether you're just running a family, or, and I don't mean just, but people,
Right.
that's the hardest thing in the world. And like, that is not, even though I have all these kids, I love them, I'm with them, it's not my gift. Some people are super gifted with keeping care of a house and organization and that type of a thing, and I know that that's not my talent. Being with children, I love children, that's a gift, and my love is a gift that I'm able to express it. But some people are very, very hands-on, talented. Let's get this project going, let's get that project going. You're a leader in your family first and foremost. That's your ultimate, your smallest circle, wherever you're at, even if you're alone and you're just having your sister come over or whatever, you're leading somebody at some point.
Yeah.
So I said you're leading your family, you're leading your friends, you're leading your community by your neighbors, the way they watch you, and you're leading on social media. If you ever post anything, you're influencing somebody somewhere. You are
Yeah.
a leader.
In addition to your business too, because even if you're a solopreneur, you're still making a difference in other people's lives, right? You're still impacting the community and there's a ripple effect so I think I love that you really want to encourage everyone to realize that they are born a leader and to claim that.
You have to claim it. And it took a while with confidence, because I'm a little quirky, if you haven't noticed.
We all are.
Yeah. But I let my quirkiness show, and
Yes.
not having masks,
Yeah.
and being authentic. So
That's my next question for you. So you obviously through your introduction and what, even the bio that I read, you wear a lot of hats, girl.
yeah,
You're a business owner, an entrepreneur, a grandma, a mom, publisher, of magazine and books or newspaper and books. So talk to us about your concept of wearing masks and the culture that we live in of hiding.
I think that was a big part of my growth, was to realize, to really instead of trying to fit into the norm or society, because I never did. Even at a job, I would have to, I had so many opinions and so many insights on whether it's politics, whether it's pro-life stuff, whether it's whatever it was. You couldn't talk about it in the office or in the showroom or whatever job I was in. And also to be expressive, there was kind of this mold that you had to fit in, talk about shallow stuff, what makeup we were wearing, the thing of the day. I mean, it got a little deep, but not to a depth level that I'm used to thinking about. And so I had to constantly think something's wrong with me, right? How do I lead? Because I don't fit in. I don't fit in. And my whole life I never fit in. I was doing protests to my baton teacher in 5th grade. And always a little bit different. And in
But don't you think that's okay? It's okay not to fit. I mean, we've learned that now, right? As adults.
but at the time when you're
Right.
young,
Yeah.
you're
We want to fit in.
yeah, you want to fit in.
Yeah.
And so embracing leadership, you're not even thinking about being a leader. You're just trying to fit in with the status quo and keep a job. By 3 months, my personality, I stuffed it so much that by 3 months, it's going to pop out somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Instead, there was a shift, and that was with the flame, and it was fearless.
Mhm.
And it was the moment where, and this built up to it with teaching and with, being a program director and all of my experience in sales and building websites, but it never came to a culmination until the flame. And that's when
Mhm.
it was my time. I knew it, like, because there was no fear. We were fighting for our grandkids and our kids' future.
Right.
Know what was happening. We didn't know, at the time I was fighting whether you're pro-vax or not pro-vax, doesn't matter to me. But when they're telling me I have to put something in my body, and I was afraid they were going to come door to door, and they were locking us down, and they weren't allowed, and stupid rules like 6 feet, like that, you'd start to research, and 6 feet, like that's going to do anything. And you have all these circles on the grocery store and go this way. And I'm almost in fist fights at the mall, people are like, put on your mask. No, like, I'm not suffocating myself, at any level. So I fought against government overreach. And at that point, I let myself just not, I was fearless. I was fearless. And that's when I realized I am a leader, like of mass levels. And
Hmm.
flew all over, met the top of the heads of some of the states. And now I don't agree with them. I think it's happening again. But that's not the point. The point is I was fearless. And I was fearless. And when I did fear, I was afraid to fly. I would have anxiety attacks. I'd get on the plane anyway. I'd speak anyway. And
Yeah.
um, that I didn't wear a mask. I was myself.
Yeah. Well, good for you. But I mean, it started in the physical. Now we're talking about the culture of hiding and, how we wear masks to show our weakness or imperfections or what have you. But
Well,
you
that
made so many good points here
uh-huh.
that, that was a time where there were physical masks that were imposed on us.
Talking the mental mask, because I took my personality at the time, and
Mm,
I was fearless about being myself. That mask came off completely.
yeah.
Who I was on podcasts, on paper, whether I was talking to some of the top people in the world that I mean, doctors, some of the most famous doctors that people know, presidents' sons, generals, people,
Wow.
I was who I was. And I was with paper at hand with 2,000, 3,000 people. This is how we change America. You can't
Yeah.
rumble with your taxi driver. Like, my personality was loud, proud, and it was like we are on a journey for our kids and grandkids, because we could never happen in America.
Yeah, we're battling for our country and for our freedoms and the right to be able um to have our own, say. I love that your epiphany came when you were doing the flame, because the flame is very symbolic. It starts as a little ember and then it grows, right? And I love that your courage and, like you say, your desire to make a difference in the world, it it came at a time where it needed to, and everything you've been through has prepared you for that time,
Mhm.
right? That's what I'm really in awe of in my personal journey with the Lord, is that nothing's wasted.
Yeah, we had Ephesians, what is it? 12, I think, or was it 6:14? We battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers,
Yeah. Ephesians 6:10. Yep.
6:10. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
still is on the back of the flame. Yeah,
It's
I'm gonna move
true.
real quick. I have
It's
to
true.
get.
That's very true. So when you're saying, we're talking about the masks we wear, but also the unveiling, taking off masks, right? And being more
Right.
real and more present.
Yep, excuse me. I'm just jumping in here while I'm taking off a mask and getting back in here. I have my grandbaby and I needed something because yeah. So anyway,
That's
say
okay.
that one more time. I'm
Well,
sorry.
well, no, that's okay. We're just talking about, there's the mask we wear, showing weakness, like you talked about, having it all together, perfectionism, what drives us to being productive and achieving things. But there's also what you're mentioning, which I hadn't thought about, is the mask we take off. We need to be confident and strong enough to be able to take off the masks and be more vulnerable. And
Yeah.
you and I have talked about that, even with singing. you know, you're going in front of that, was it at a mall or something you said, and
Yeah,
you're
the mall.
singing? And, that's how I feel about, like, when I sing my commercials. I don't consider myself to have a great voice, but it's a way to be able to share your heart with others
Yeah,
and
it's
be
working from the
memorable and have
heart
fun.
instead of the head, right?
Right, right. And it does make a difference. People do respond.
Yeah.
When it doesn't have to be perfect, but people do respond when they, have a sense of you being able to share from your heart.
Almost felt like it was a test that day for that paper for the Mill Creek. To say yes, like the synchronicities, were there. It was just like I just was saying I say yes, and 2 minutes later a call comes about the Mill Creek view and taking it over. So,
Wow.
yeah, and
That,
that and
I think there's some energy that's released when we do that.
yeah,
We open doors with, being able to be open with yes, with that yes spirit.
they say let your yes be yes and your no be no, right?
Right. That's biblical.
And also leading, you don't always feel like leading. And
No.
you don't know, you're doing your thing and
Right.
to the park, and then you're also leading big things, and you're just a human being, and you got to remember that every leader on the earth is the same flesh and blood as you. So if you ever think of yourself as less than or more than, or idolize certain people, they're just people, you know
Yeah, that's true. Like they say, we all put our pants on one leg at a time, right?
yeah.
So what really matters? What is the purpose? What is the whole purpose of leadership?
Well, the purpose of leadership is to ignite people into their own passion and purpose. So it's to really, it's not about leading for any specific reason or ego purpose. It's about building. And whether that's building an individual, one child at a time as you lead your family, whether that's leading by example on work ethic to be able to show people that you can do things. Like when I went back to college, going to college was a working leadership to show my kids that they could do anything with their life and no excuses, no matter what. And then also noting your physical limitations and or mental limitations, that you could work around that in because you all have a gift. So by leading with certain limitations and certain ways of being and showing people you could do it anyway and finding their gifts and talents. My husband always calls it talent excavating. And so by leading, you're always excavating the talent out of another human being. And that's how societies thrive.
Right.
Ultimately for our society now and goodness, because if we don't get to stay here forever, we have a legacy to leave. And if we don't get to stay here forever, we have goodness that gets us to our next destination after this point.
Right. And leadership is not just about, like follow me, it's empowering others to be their best selves, right?
Yeah. And it's like herding cats sometimes.
It is a lot of times.
Yeah. It's like herding cats. So you have to be able to show an example. So mine is work ethic. And I don't ask anything to do something. And it kind of drives me nuts when people aren't willing to do the work, but trying to boss people around
Right.
and they think they're leading. And there's a balance there because you do have to be able to delegate and you're one person. So you can't just be, I'm better than everybody else because I work harder. Yet you have to lead by example and be a working leader, in my opinion. If you're not a working leader, you're not a leader.
Yeah. And in many respects, it could be called a servant leader, right? Because that's what you're doing as a working leader. You're being a servant. You're serving your communities, you're serving your country. Um, and but you're right, work ethic is not something that is as I want to say popular, but we don't, this generation doesn't have, has not had the work ethic instilled in it. And I think we need to get back to that.
Yeah, and that is something that I think is my biggest capability in leadership is doing. And I'm a driver though, so I have to pull back sometimes. I am a driving force to get things done. And there are the places where somebody is more of the critique, and you got to realize that is a gift too. Because I will move so quick, I'll miss something, if
Yeah,
that makes sense, because I'm driving and I get
right.
move me, whether it's starting a paper, getting a bank account open, starting the back end of a system, getting on writing a book so I could get it out, texting annoyingly, which one of the people in Exceptional Connections was like, don't spam people. And I'm just like, I've got 4,000 people to contact. Maybe I should say hi though. How are you? And
Yeah,
and those are the tips where I'm like,
yeah,
right, even though she just really made me mad. And but she's right, because the things I miss because I move so quickly. But because I move so quickly, I get things done. So there's a balancing act. And that's where if you do have a team, you got to find each other's gifts and
right.
lead by that, because otherwise a lot can happen in relationships.
Yeah,
And
we need each other, right? We need each other in community and society and in families and relationships to be able to balance each other out and soften each other's, rough edges, if you will.
yeah.
Um, so I love the concept that you talked about the witness within
Mhm.
and your true self and how it's been watching. Share more about that. That's really an intriguing concept.
Okay, well, you could go to I'm a Christian, so I believe in Jesus, but when I also I hear like be still and know that I am God. Or, just some meditative, where why worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will take care of itself, like those scriptures. But how do you apply them? The only way I've ever learned is Zen meditation. Okay, with either Zen or some type of Eastern type of person that really knows about meditation. So I was watching Muji, who's not a Christian. He used to be a Christian, but I apply my Christianity to this because it's almost like an Eckhart Tolle too, if you know about that. And it's staying in the moment. So I don't want to get extra metaphysical out of the Christian walk, but it's about that part of us because it's the only way I personally could see it. By reading the Bible, I never got this concept, but by just seeing some meditation people talk about it, I was able to apply the Bible, if that makes sense.
Right. Well,
Okay.
but it talks about be still and know that I am God. So
Yeah,
there's the,
but okay, but
prayer and the meditation
let me
piece, right?
explain how I got here though.
Okay.
So when I when I thought about the blank slate of God, of eternity, of swimming in Jesus, he says we live, breathe, and move in him. Like we swim in him. I think about quantum physics. Again, I'm a nerd, okay? And then I look at my life and I think who was watching me when I was a baby? What part of me was watching me when I was 2, when I was 3, when I was 7, the one watching me fight my baton teacher, the part of me that's watched my whole life unaffected by how I feel in my body. The part of me that watched me have asthma attacks when I was little, when I cried out to God, why are you doing this to me? The part of me that watched me get married, the part of me that watched me make mistakes. That's that our soul, basically. I'm not sure, but to me, I believe it's our higher soul. It's who we really are, and that's the part of us that never changes. That's the part of us that knows God. That's the part of us that sits at the right hand of the Father with Jesus. That's the part of us that sits in God. That's the part of us that is always, forever. I don't know if it had a start date, when God breathed us into a body. Um, but it's the eternal part that's with God,
Right.
in my opinion. And I'm not sure, I don't know, but I know that it's watched me. And
Mm,
that's the part that's higher than my ego. That's here's my psychology. That's the part that it's the part I could come back to and realize this is all temporal, this is all phenomenal. It's literally like Jesus said, don't worry because today takes care of itself, stay in the moment. It's the part of us that says let go and let God in recovery. It's the
mhm.
part of us that says the serenity prayer. It's the part that just is still and it's powerful, and we get distracted and we hear the noise of the world and we fear, and our nervous systems and the 5G and the electronics and all this stuff. That's the part that never changes. And when you tap into that, your essential self, the higher self, I call it big me, little me, that part is the one that moves. It's the discerner. It's the wisdom, as the Bible calls it. It's the part that could tap in and pray and really connect. But we forget to do that. I forget to do it. It's really, sorry, my daughter just walked in. She's started college. So she's on a college meeting and I'm on a Zoom. Leadership.
That's okay. There's a
Yeah,
lot of distractions in the world,
a lot of
and
distractions,
fear is a distraction as well.
but that part that just watched her walk in and walk out, and now that part's over, that moment's over. She just walked in, interrupted my meeting, well, on her own meeting, but that's over, and that stillness never left. It doesn't change, and that's who we are inside. Is a really a deep part of us that it has the power of God. It's they say, Jesus says, like, I am my Father of one, and he also says that we're one with him and that we live in him, that we sit with him, that we're in the third heaven already sitting there. And that's the part that I could see how it could be both this and that. We're in this
Mm,
body, but we're also there, and
right.
and that's the only way I could wrap my brain around it. And you can't wrap your brain because it's more of an experimental type of thing. But when you live there, there's a peace there that does surpass all understanding. And to come to that place will give, it helps with leadership. It helps with life. It helps with knowing what to do next. That's all.
Well, it's ageless and timeless is what I'm hearing
Ageless.
you say. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why like I think about as I'm as I'm growing older and I'm not, a young girl anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already raised my children, I have grandchildren myself. But if I don't look in the mirror, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not moving, you feel that timeless, ageless part of yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It never
You
changed.
tap into that, right? And so
Yeah.
that's something that's my epiphany as I'm growing older and I see people that are older than I am and their bodies are breaking down. I think there's that young girl that wants to do,
Mhm.
cartwheels and wants to sing and
Yeah.
wants to,
Wants to ice skate.
right, wants to do things that our bodies don't, let us do anymore.
I
So
tried.
this has been a fun conversation. Okay, so we've got a little bit more time, but before we'll open it up for Q&A, and anybody
Okay.
who's on the line can be able to have a conversation with us. So you also talk about the leadership conundrum. I love that word, conundrum,
Mm-hmm.
and the kind of tension between the mind and your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, that we need our minds and their tools. We need to be able to think and to process and to move forward and to get things done. But if we lead from our head all the time, we forget our heart. And it's hard to connect with other people if we're forgetting our heart. And that's the part where I could get passive aggressive on, because if I'm leading from my head, I don't understand why somebody's not doing something or seeing something, or don't you know I did all this work? It's the ego part. It works well when you're doing a function and thinking, and you guys are at the meeting of the minds, like think tanks, like they say, and you're coming up with ideas and it's all mental up here. But when you're leading from your heart, it's about being human and about compassion and
Yes.
about coming up with solutions that are heart based and understanding somebody's dilemma or what they're going through, and being there and being authentically there heart to heart with somebody. And so the conundrum is knowing when to come from one, because you could get codependent if you're always heart based and you're not, and you're just giving and giving and giving and not being able to ask people for help, or to keep them accountable with roles and responsibilities, which is a head thing. So there's a
Right.
tension between the two at all times, because you need both.
You do. I was just going to say that. I love that you're making that distinction. You do need both. Both are important, and you have to be discerning to know when
Mm-hmm.
to lean on one more than the other. But we do need to come from both perspectives to keep us balanced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's the meeting. What do they say? The 6 inches or 12 inches between here and here, and it's keeping them both online, and it's tough to do. It's kind of like our political landscape, not anymore, but because it's getting even worse. But it's almost like one side leads with the heart, so they want the funding and the compassion, but it's not realistic. It would be like it's not realistic financially, physical. You need the structure in and law and order, which is the head part, and you need the compassion, which is the heart part. And most people would agree that on a lot of common ground within giving to certain people and having that compassion and having help within our government, like elderly, they can't take care of themselves all the time. You have to be able to take care of widows, orphans, elderly, like Jesus said, but you also need the responsibility of having a plan and having a structure that works within this. And that's on every level. So you've got a macrocosm and a microcosm, and the macrocosm has to work on the same as the microcosm, if that makes sense.
Wow, yes. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to say it. Okay, I want to be able to have, as we close here, we'll just have about 3 more minutes and then we'll open it up for any questions or again, people joining our conversation. But you talk about leading from authenticity, and then you talk about the reliable place. I really appreciated your insights on, you know, reliable and stable places to be able to come from.
And that's our soul again. That's the, as my husband screams with my granddaughter in the back, um that is that is the part of us that when we don't get in our own way, we're reliable. It's the part of us that can be confident even if we make a mistake. We can move if we quiet down and we go with our heart. Like, you can hear it. You could hear God, really, if you quiet down and you listen. It's discernment, really, is the reliable place. And so by discerning what's right from wrong, it's pretty simple. It's goodness. And then it's practical application. So when I think of a project like I did the Lighthouse Alliance, which is going to help a lot of people with domestic violence, with just legal problems, um, it was not a project I was thinking of taking on, but I could feel that spirit, that reliable spirit saying, you need to do this. It's time to move. And I'm like, no. That's when I had a no. Yeah, yeah, and then you follow the breadcrumbs. It's almost of synchronicity. So things happen. When the doors are shutting, you know it. That's a reliable indication. And when the doors are opening, you know it because things
Right.
happen.
Right. Yeah, and that's a, Isaiah 22:22, talks about the keys of King David and opening doors no man can open, closing doors no man can close, and
Hmm.
being led by that. Because I
Yeah.
love that. When a door closes, in the past, I would have been upset or felt betrayed or, confused. And now I'm like at peace with it. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
God's making it really clear that that's not a door I'm supposed to go through and
Hmm.
and to wait for the next door. So I love that in that, in really finding that reliable place, we're not swayed by every opinion, right?
Mm-mm. No, no opinion,
Right. We're confident.
except maybe criticism on, if you approached it this way, you might do better than approaching that way. But no outwardly opinion of man. Um, and if people don't like you, oh well.
Yeah. And pausing is so important, to be able to have the wisdom to know when to be still
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
when to wait, right?
It was funny because I knew I had to leave the flame. I knew it. And it was coming, and I was having internal battles. That was my baby, right?
Mm.
And I knew, and I didn't know why I knew. I just knew. I mean, I knew some reasons, but it just was this over, and doors were closing and closing for me and closing. And I didn't know why I needed to do the Mill Creek View. Like, that made no sense to me, but I did it, and in my brain, I kept the kids, paid and work ethic, but it's not my passion. And then I realized that it led me to some of the things that I'm going to be doing in the future that's going to help and work together. And so, when doors open, it's just clear. It's clear as day when they start to open. And you could tell by your drive too. And you could tell by your passion, the way you feel. And it doesn't mean we're always going to be happy about the way we feel about something. It still takes work and it's not always fun. But you could tell the difference between the mundane of just doing something and really doing it because you're leading by your heart.
Right. Well, yeah, when we're doing things, I find like I'm doing things that I'm passionate about and that I'm supposed to be doing, I actually
Mhm.
get energized even in the midst of expending energy.
Yeah.
There's some kind of an excitement, there's a purpose that you're being driven by.
Yeah. It's a bigger
You know
purpose.
what? I want to ask one more before we open it up because I
Okay.
really I love this. I love your talk and your passion for being able to, be able to share your things that you've learned during your journey. So
Hmm.
what, just in closing here, what are some daily authentic leadership strategies that you use to remove your mask?
To
So
remove my mask,
yeah,
uh, uh, I don't even have a strategy because I just I have to sometimes hold back a little bit because I will go into deep conversation really easy and I have to discern when that's appropriate and when it's not. And that's the biggest lesson I'm learning. Um, because if you throw too much at somebody, they'll shut you down pretty
right.
quick.
Yeah. I always
And
say that fire hoses don't
yeah,
are
yeah,
not,
they'll
yeah.
shut you down pretty quick. So it's better to build a relationship with somebody first
Yes.
and get to know them than to be a fire hose of your own opinion. And that's the problem with social media right now, is that we are fire hosing with our own opinion. And I used to do that. So that's my biggest leadership is you don't have to always be right. You don't have to see it from the same angle, and you're able to do a lot more if you have conversation and you have a relationship. Sometimes people keep slamming me with some stuff, and then I'll come back and and I'll be me and just like, no, I don't see it that way, but I love you anyway. But here's
Yeah.
my research,
Right. Don't you think the first step too is just realizing you have a mask? Just, I mean, being that transparent
Yeah.
with yourself that, some people don't even recognize that there's different masks that they wear.
Yeah, absolutely. To walk in a room, I think it's about identity in Christ and God. Is if you know your identity and it can't be touched, and you know your power. Marianne Williamson has a great quote. I'd have to find it, but we're afraid of our own power, basically. And
Yes.
when you realize how powerful you really are in God. I'm not doing this as an ego thing, but through Him, we're able to move. And when we diminish ourselves out of false humility, that's when we don't own up and we do put on those fake masks and we walk around like my house is better than yours, my cars is better than yours, I work harder than you. It's a superior, either inferiority or superiority complex that we tend to have, and that is not authentic.
Well, what comes to mind to me is just the whole idea of being grounded, because we talked about that, at the last meeting, how important it is to be grounded in like who you are, what you
Hmm.
believe, your values, um, your true self, being, not being judgmental of others. There's a lot of factors that go into that, aren't there?
Yeah, and research is one. I think people are lazy. That's a pet peeve of mine, to do the real research and not to get in an echo chamber. That
Mhm.
is something, a lesson learned from doing the flame. And if you're in an echo chamber, you can't understand other people's perspectives and you can't look at all angles, and then you're being brainwashed.
Mm. Wow, that's interesting.
Well, that's not me in my mask. I'm not afraid to say the stuff that people get
Yeah,
uncomfortable with.
it's
And
I see
and at
that.
this time in history, research is super important because there's a lot of propaganda. And I did start out with the flame, Cyndi, and that is what I was fighting. And so
Hmm.
that doesn't leave me. I know where we're at.
Right.
I mean, in my opinion, I know where we're at. And it's a time for us to step up as leaders. And that's why
Yes.
this is important.
Right. Wow. Well,
Even
I
if
love your
you're
insights.
Mhm.
And if anyone has a question, you can feel free to unmute yourself and be able to um, enter into our conversation, be able to share your insights or ask a question. Feel free to just unmute. And if otherwise, do you have anything else you want to share, Nicole, that
I
um,
just I just want to say that research is key right now, and even if you're a solopreneur, or we have to come up with different systems of doing things. This is a time in history that's going to be innovative, and we have the opportunity to change our landscape. A lot of people are unhappy with the current system. It's gotten overblown, it's gotten hard to live in, it's gotten expensive, and it may continue to go that way. We're in wars, we're killing people, we're fighting each other, there's division, it's apparent, and our kids are growing up in this, our grandkids are growing up in this. And but our hope is, first of all, in God. We don't get to live here forever, we get an opportunity to make some change while we are here, and so you got to take the fear out of it. But also it's an innovative time, like we were talking about free energy and about Tesla and about that they're suppressing maybe some of that stuff. This is a time in history we could take our businesses and our talents to the next level and really get some alternate systems. And if we could get together, and I don't care what party you're in or what you're, if we could come together and find common ground and implement change like we're doing with Lighthouse Alliance for legal issues, because people, 78% of people can't afford the lawyers, and that's a problem, and our kids are affected in trauma, and our world is traumatic just with social media, even seeing it. We have to implement change, and that's why the leadership, learning leadership, even in small increments, is important. We all have a part to play, and it doesn't have to be owning a paper and spreading out a million of them or doing anything big. It could just be being good to your kid that day. Little incremental changes every single day collectively will change our world.
that is really beautiful. And the word that comes to mind as I hear you share, and just kind of to put a bubble, tie a bow around our conversation, is I think a lot of grace is needed in the days to come, because with innovation comes experimentation and, where we're going, we haven't been before. And, to give ourselves permission to just do the best we can but know that we're no longer in a box. Like the sky's the limit. We can recreate the structures, whether it's education and government and just the way we do things. We don't have to just continue to do what we've done in the past. And that's exciting, but it's also terrifying, right?
Yeah, it's like walking into abyss, and but it doesn't have to be big stuff. It could be within your family. You were a homeschooler. I'm not. We have a program, and my granddaughter is highly functioning, get diagnosed. I think she's just gifted. But the point is that we needed the structure, and I wasn't able to provide what she needed. Montessori would be ideal, or some type of alternate school that would help. So we're looking at options, but those are the things we need to create, and it does not have to go with the status quo. We need alternate systems.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do. And it's exciting because I think that we're just on the precipice of being able to, create structures and systems that are going to better serve, our families, our communities, and our world.
Yeah, I agree. So I would just say, um, if you're going to see social media, research. Don't just take things at face value right now. Be careful on just having a so structured ideology that you're not willing to take somebody else's stuff into account. Really, be able to see different versions, and then you could own the one that best suits you after the research.
Right.
Don't believe everything you hear. And if you're not paying attention to stuff and you're just going on, it's a time to also pay attention. So there's a balance between paying too much attention and not paying any attention, because the way that we're going to help our kids and grandkids is by being aware too. You don't want to not be aware. And then pray. Just pray. God's
Yeah.
bigger than us. He knows what
Yeah.
he's doing.
Wisdom and discernment are
Wins, yeah,
really, really very key and important right now. Well,
turning it.
Nicole, thank you so much for sharing with our Exceptional Connections July community, for being able to share on this call. It will be recorded and posted in our YouTube channel for others to be able to glean and listen to as well. So, just in closing, share how anyone who wants to get to a hold of you or get to know you better, how they can get in touch with you.
Well, you could go to millcreekviewus@gmail.com, or Nicole at lhalliance.org. And you can also go to the frequency code. You could get my book. I mean, there's all kinds of things you could do. I have elixirpublishinghouse.com, and there's a way to get so, but Mill Creek View US right now, or Nicole at lhalliance.org is probably the best one, because I'm making some shifts in the next few months too.
Okay, so I'll add that to the in the description so people can get a hold of you. But thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you for sharing with our community so generously and for this conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I hope our listeners have as well. And so, any closing thoughts?
Just masks off, be yourself, um, be the true warrior you are. And I mean, love warrior, I mean, love warrior, masks off, just be you, because we need every single person right now on this planet to realize they are so beautiful and wonderfully made, and they have
Yes,
talents we need.
absolutely. Awake and alert is important right now.
Very important.
So,
Yeah.
in closing, I just wish everybody a wonderful day and make every connection an exceptional connection. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Bye.